Hello again, everyone, and thanks for joining us for today's show. Up first on the hazardous weather graphic, we have a system moving in to the southwest coast here, Nunivak Island, bringing snow with it and some blowing snow with winds gusting anywhere from 30 to 45 miles an hour. And that's reducing visibilities to less than a half mile at times. So there is a winter weather advisory out for the Yukon Delta, Hooper Bay, St. Mary's, those areas there into Bethel and Makoriak, Nunivak Island. And that's out until this evening, until later this evening, in which case the system will weaken and move eastward, and the advisories will end this evening. And then for Saturday, we have a big storm that's going to move into the Russian Far East, and that's going to tighten the gradient up. We're looking at possible winter storm warnings for heavy wind and snow here, St. Lawrence Island into the Seward Peninsula, all of the Seward Peninsula there, even Norton Sound into the Lotto Hills, Stebbins and St. Michael area, Unalakleet, of course, on up in toward Kotzebue, even Selwyn Valley in the watch zone there, all the northwest coast, Kivalina, Red Dog Dock up to Point Hope and Cape Lisburne. Otherwise, advisory warning watch free for the remainder of the state. So we'll just move into the satellite imagery here, and we've got a weak system here bringing some rain and snow cloudy skies here to the southeast coast today, and kind of slowly moving eastward because the wind flow, the clouds are almost lying parallel to the wind flow from southeast to northwest here, pulling some clouds into the eastern interior as well, but the whole pattern shifting eastward, so this will be kicking through later tonight. And some light snow, northern Cook Inlet with these clouds kind of pulling up into this area now this afternoon. So clear skies advancing northeastward throughout the day today. And a lot of clearing occurred Kodiak Island on up into south central Alaska. And then we're watching this system that yesterday was way back over the northwest Bering Sea, and it's tracked eastward here, began to develop, right, low center right there, coming in right toward the southwest coast. That's spreading snow eastward and southeastward, getting some snow into Togiak now, Cape Newenham, increasing clouds over the eastern Bristol Bay area after a mostly sunny day today. A lot of clearing over Kodiak Island. Looks like another weak development here that'll keep some snow in the Pribilofs currently, and then till it kicks by, and then it'll taper off. But actually, the frontal boundary will remain roughly in place here. Otherwise, up to the north, another weak system producing areas of snow from actually St. Lawrence Island on up through the Bering Strait, Kotzebue. So you can see that weak low there over the Noatak Valley producing light snow from Cape Lisburne, Point Hope, all the northwest interior areas, Noatak Valley, into the Kobuk Valley, and then some light snow of this trough. That's what brought the snow in. Northern Cook Inlet earlier today, and the Susitna Valley, that again weakening. A lot of clear skies. You can see good clearing Kodiak Island right up into southern Cook Inlet this afternoon, and some area, this mostly mid and high level moisture, Copper River Basin into the eastern interior areas with some sunshine and warmer temperatures. Some areas into the 40s. Eagle was up to at least 45 today. Tok around 40, 41, and 30s, mid to upper 30s there in toward the Fairbanks area. Otherwise, there's this weak trough that's slowly associated with this weak low here that's slowly moving eastward and will eventually move out of the area. And I think tonight, yeah, it's pretty much washed out, but still some lingering scattered shower activity around, but not too bad all the way up to Yakutat. This, let me back it up here. This little center kicks off to the north. This one moves northeastward to this position, almost right over the Kobuk Valley tonight. Areas of snow with it. So snow will push in across the Kuskokwim Mountains a frontal weekend. So don't look for advisory level snows to fall in the Kuskokwim Valley tonight, but some light snow will push all the way to the western Alaska range, and probably hold off moving east of the mountains until sometime tomorrow morning. Otherwise, should stay dry Kodiak Island tonight, and then this front across the Bering Sea here, that'll put the Pribilof Islands right on the rain snow line there, but whatever falls will be light. Winds aren't that big of an issue. Pretty light winds here, nice and dry over the Aleutians, but just out here to the edge of the chart there, you can see the low edging its way onto the map. Comes a little farther east by tomorrow afternoon and deepens, so that kind of slows its eastward or northeastward movement. Good push of warm air from the southwest to the northeast coast, pushing in initially here into the western Bering Sea, and southwest winds as well here over the Aleutians, central Aleutians, but dry conditions. Winds not all that strong, AKwx. Could see a mostly sunny day actually here from about Chitka eastward to the Alaska Peninsula, with high pressure keeping the winds very light for the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. Higher pressure building in over the southwest interior. May not shut the shower condition off all the way, but whatever falls will be pretty light. Skies expect to stay mostly cloudy. Then as this trough, or the front, drags across the Alaska Range, a weak low will form here over Cook Inlet. So periods of light snow, Kenai Peninsula, northern Cook Inlet, Mananuska-Susitna Valley, and a widespread area of light snow showers expected over much interior Alaska, especially out to the along the northwest coast there, with this weak trough extending down from that low that's pulled up over the Arctic. Otherwise, the Arctic coast and North Slope remaining dry. Mostly dry, though, over the eastern interior here. Don't look for much precipitation at all over the upper or the 40-mile country there, even into the Yukon Flats. And still kind of unsettled there for the southeast coast with a chance of moisture, but nothing heavy. And then that weak low tracks eastward just off the north coast of the Panhandle there for Saturday. So that'll keep it cloudy and the chance of rain or snow across the entire southeast coast, especially in the north there. Drier conditions down to the south, maybe precipitation free down toward Prince of Wales Island, over toward Misty Fjords. High pressure here moving into the eastern interior, so mostly sunny skies. Light winds, offshore winds will make definitely sunshine into the Gulf of Alaska, Seward. Very nice day coming up. Warmer temperatures both aloft coming in ahead of this system with that southwest flow. So particularly on Sunday, we'll see warmer high temperatures, but for tomorrow, or for Saturday, not too bad. Light winds out here to the west, another story, kind of splitting the state in half there. We've got winter storm watches out. You can see the gradient here between the low over the Russian Far East and the high in the east. Could produce winds as high as 40 to maybe 65 miles an hour, possibly even reaching 70 miles an hour. The windier areas like Cape Lisburne, for example, with windy conditions, should hit St. Lawrence Island pretty hard with snow and blowing snow. Maybe some advisory level snows into the Yukon Delta, but mixed precipitation for the Kuskokwim Delta. Also really lightening up in this portion of the warm front. Gusty winds and rain for the Pribilofs all the way down to Adak. Some of that moisture possibly reaching the Fox Islands late in the day, but should stay mostly sunny for Kodiak Island, the Alaska Peninsula, at least southern Bristol Bay. Then behind this front, colder air comes in once again, and freezing levels fall back to sea level, so snow showers coming back into Shimia and Attu. And moving on to the low temperatures for tonight, 10 to 15, Copper River Basin, 15 to 20 in the Susitna Valley, Mananuska Valley as well, and 20s, mid-20s here for south central Alaska, right around 10 for the Kuskokwim Valley, and 15 to 25 for the lows in Bristol Bay, upper 20s, Kodiak Island, and lower 30s for all of the southeast coast. And highs tomorrow, 40 to 45 here for the Panhandle, near 40 for Yakutat, Middleton Island, Seward, Homer, Kodiak, lower 40s, and right at the freeze point for the Gulkana area, Glen Ellen, and lower 30s in the Susitna Valley, highs into the mid-30s for the Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet area to near 40 for Homer, Seldovia, and upper 20s, lower 30s for Bristol Bay, lower to mid-20s for the Kuskokwim Valley, and then colder air coming in on Saturday morning, so low 0 to 5 for the Susitna Valley, maybe even some areas sneaking down below 0, like around Willow there, and the western Susitna Valley in that cold zone. Otherwise, 10 to 15 for the lows for the Kenai Peninsula, and 5 below to 5 above Copper River Basin, around 5 below to 5 above also for the Kuskokwim Valley, colder in the Bristol Bay area, 10 to 20 for your lows, 25 for Kodiak Island. In the southeast coast, in the lower 30s once again, followed by highs, 40 to 45 for the Panhandle on Saturday, upper 20s for the Copper River Basin, and 25 to 32 south central Alaska, about the same in the Kuskokwim Valley, and in the mid-30s for the Bristol Bay area. Up to the north, staying above 0 tonight, except for the Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island area in the western Arctic coast. Highs tomorrow. 20s to lower 30s in the east, and single numbers here in the west. And for the lows Saturday morning, colder 0 to 20 below, about sums it up. Even below 0 out to the Bering Strait, 5 for St. Lawrence Island, and 30s, mid-30s for the highs on Saturday with that south wind coming in, and highs in the teens and 20s for the interior. Southwest coast, lows tonight 5 to 10, mid-20s for the Pribilofs, in the 30s for the Aleutians, upper 20s, lower 30s for the Alaska Peninsula, and then the highs Friday afternoon, lower 20s, southwest coast, mid-30s for St. Paul, and right around 40 here for the Aleutians, lower 40s for Unalaska, and near 40 for the Alaska Peninsula, followed by lows 30 to 35 most areas, and near 30 for the Pribilofs, except the southwest coast down to around 20, 32 for the Saturday morning low at Chimia, and then we'll see with the front to the east, colder air only rising to the mid-30s out west there, but 40 to 45 here for Adak and Atka, mid-30s for the Pribilofs, and 40 to maybe 45 for the Alaska Peninsula, and in the 30s for the southwest coast.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Thank you for joining us on today's aviation segment. I'm meteorologist Emily. First, we're going to talk about your flying weather for your Friday morning. You can see we have widespread IFR conditions across much of interior northern Alaska due to that weakening low that's moved in from the Bering Sea and across the Seward Peninsula and into interior areas. Also seen some lingering stratus in the morning along the northern Chukchi Sea for us. As we go up further west to the Bering Sea, we're having a low pressure system move northwards into the Bering, and this is why it's causing widespread low ceilings and low visibility for your Friday morning. As we move into the afternoon hours, some of that IFR condition mixes out, but we still have enough support from that low pressure system to keep your visibilities low and your ceilings low as well in some portions, but mainly MVFR conditions across much of mainland Alaska. As we move again into the Bering, you can see we have that low pressure system and its associated fronts causing reduced visibilities as it moves from the North Pacific into the Bering. For Saturday morning, same story. That low is going to dominate the weather for your Friday and Saturday, so expect widespread low visibilities and ceilings. As we move into interior Alaska, you can see improvements, but still some widespread MVFR conditions in the morning, especially in some of your low valleys. Also, we're going to start your day off with IFR conditions in the Panhandle due to some lingering moisture and stratus clouds. Again, Saturday afternoon, that low pressure system is really going to dominate your weather for Saturday. So again, into the eastern Aleutians and starting into some of the Alaska Peninsula, expect some reduced visibilities and along especially coastal areas. Let's look at your pass conditions. AKwx Pass is going to be in IFR conditions for much of your Friday, with slightly improved conditions in northern portions of the pass. Same story for Aviation Pass. Again, mainly IFR conditions due to some of that moisture from that low pressure system that's dissipating in the area. But again, slightly improved conditions as you go northwards. For Lake Clark and Merrill passes, we're going to be starting with IFR conditions with improvements towards MVFR conditions by your afternoon hours. As we move into Rainy Pass, again, similar story, starting with IFR conditions and improvements to MVFR towards the afternoon hours. Windy Pass also will be experiencing those conditions as well. Isabel will start out with IFR with improvements to MVFR towards your afternoon. Mentasta as well, IFR conditions improving towards MVFR towards your afternoon hours. Tahina Pass, we're going to start out with IFR conditions with improvements towards MVFR towards the afternoon hours. Portage Pass will remain in MVFR conditions. Even as that low pressure system continues to move out of the area, we're going to have some lingering clouds in that area. Chilkoot and White Passes. Again, we're going to be starting with IFR conditions in the Panhandle with some mixing throughout the day, which are going to improve conditions towards MVFR. Let's look at your freezing levels. You can see cold air is entrenched across much of mainland Alaska and the Bering Sea. So again, you have to go fairly far south to get surface temperatures above freezing. We do see, however, as we were mentioning before, with that low pressure system that's moving from the Pacific into the Bering, it's going to be bringing some warm air with southerly winds. So we're starting to see on Friday morning some freezing levels at 2,000 feet and even up to 4,000 feet within portions of the Bering and along the Aleutian Islands. So we do have some warm air coming in with this powerful system. Let's look at your icing. Again, we have widespread isolated moderate across much of the area, but we are seeing pockets of considerable moderate where that low pressure system is weakening and where we have a little bit of upslope wind occurring and causing some icing to be possible. But again, we have several dissipating systems that are just going to keep conditions, maybe isolated moderate icing. Let's look at your upper level jets. You can see we have up to 140 knots in parts of the western Barrier aloft, with some 95 knots as you come into the Kuskokwim Delta. As you go even lower in the atmosphere, 9,000 feet, winds are still streaming to the north. We have 85 knots and 60 knots across parts of the Kuskokwim Delta. Friday, we have 3,000 foot. Winds are at 80 knots. And for your turbulence, again, considerable moderate across much of the Alaska Peninsula.
Hi, Spring Star Spotters. Trace here. This week is a new moon, so we should be able to see 3 tiny and overlooked constellations. Let me show you. Hit the darkness at 11 p.m. facing northeast. Start with the handle of the Big Dipper. Follow the Big Dipper's arc to Arcturus. Arcturus is in Boötes the herdsman, but right below it are 7 semi-bright stars in a backward C shape. That's the Corona Borealis, or Northern Crown. Then follow the spike to Spica, that's in the south. To Spica's right, you'll find a small 4-sided figure of semi-bright stars, the constellation Corvus the Crow. Now keep turning toward the southwest and look almost straight up, and you should see Regulus and Leo the Lion, and even further are Castor and Pollux the Gemini twins. But halfway between them is Cancer the Crab, looking like a backwards Y on its side. The 3 C's of spring. Enjoy and keep looking up.
If you've been watching this series, you know that NASA has scientists posted all over the world studying Earth's frozen regions. We've got people exploring ice sheets, glaciers, permafrost, sea ice, snow, and even ice on other planets. But even our top scientists need a little backup sometimes.
I'm a scientist!
Do you like going outside to do science?
Yeah,
Why?
because it's fun.
Yeah. What's your favorite part?
Frost tube.
Frost tube. Cool.
In this bonus episode of Cryosphere, we're following the micro-explorers that are helping NASA collect data from their own backyard.
Do you think it's going to be frozen?
Yeah.
Yes. Why?
Because it's very frozen!
Here's the idea. Students construct a frost tube that gets put into a hole in undisturbed and uncompacted soil. During the cold months, students will measure the depth at which water in the frost tube freezes, indicating that the surrounding soil has frozen. This is one of many citizen science projects facilitated by GLOBE, the Global Learning and Observations to Benefit the Environment program.
What's going on? What did you find out?
It's ice!
How far down is the ice? So is there still liquid in there? Oh my.
It's a worldwide program that, so far, has collected over 130 million measurements from more than 10 million students in 113 countries.
Are you scientists?
Yeah.
These measurements are added to a massive worldwide database that's free and open to the public.
GLOBE connects my students with the rest of the world through science and looking at climate change and how it's affecting the future.
GLOBE teachers like Terry are transforming the way kids see science and how they'll respond to changes in their future environment.
Let me see your happy face. Ah!
Actually, we were so impressed with the kids of John Fredson's school that we decided to show their work to the scientists in the original NASA Explorers Cryosphere series. And they had a couple things to say.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Oh my God. Do you like going outside to do science? Why? How far down is the ice?
That's awesome.
Wow, this is really, really cool.
Hey students from Miss Terry's class, I just got to see your video. I was so impressed that you guys were braving the conditions of the snow and all the crazy stuff to go and learn more about the permafrost and where the water layer is right outside your school. That looked incredible.
It is so exciting to see you guys and girls doing such great work as we watch our planet change over time.
Hey there, young scientists. Looks like you guys are doing some amazing things. Remember to keep warm and take notes, and also stay curious.
Oh my God, this is awesome. I love seeing the enthusiasm of these kids. They're outside. It's obviously really cold, but everyone is so excited to be out there making measurements for NASA. That's wicked cool.
Because you're so right, science is so fun, and I really hope that you'll continue believing in that. The best piece of advice I ever got was, whatever you do, do your best.
And from all of us here at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, remember, dare mighty things.
So keep up the great work. Make sure that you're having fun no matter what. That's the key thing about pursuing a career in science. Make sure it's something that you love. And I'm really impressed. So hopefully we'll take the lessons you're learning and apply them when we explore our solar system.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Okay, coastal water forecast here for the south coast. South to west winds at 15 knots. Otherwise, light variable winds 10 to 15 knots for the north coast. And inside waters, also pretty light and variable on the winds for the day Friday at 10 knots or less. Seas slight at 2 feet or less, except Clarence Strait, looking at a southeast wind at 10 knots with 8-foot seas. And then for Saturday, southeast 10 for Clarence Strait, but those seas now down to 2 feet. Northwest 10 for Stevens Passage, north 15 for Lynn Canal, and south coast east-northeasterlies 15 to 20 knots, and the north coast east winds 15 knots. Moving over to the western North Gulf Coast, looking at winds varying directions at 15 knots for the day Friday. Variable winds at 15 for Prince William Sound. Southwest winds 20 knots here for Cook Inlet. Southwest 25 for the western North Gulf Coast. Down across the Barren Islands there. West winds 25 for Kamishak Bay. And then for the first day of the weekend, Cook Inlet, not too bad. Northerly winds 10 to 20 knots, strongest south of the Forelands, north 30 knots, Kamishak Bay, turning northwest at 30 for the Barren Islands. And for the North Gulf Coast, north to northwest winds running 20 to 30 knots with seas 6 to 7 feet. Prince William Sound, winds will be out of the north at 20 knots with 4-foot seas. Kodiak Island Friday, southwest winds 20 to 25 knots. The Alaska Peninsula, Bering Seaside here, the Pacific side, variable to west at 10 to 15 knots. Bering Seaside, southwest at 20. And Bristol Bay, southwest winds 25 knots with 4-foot seas. And for Saturday, here for Kodiak Island, west-northwest, 15 to 30 knots. Alaska Peninsula, south winds, 20 to 30 knots. And seas running 4 to 6 feet. Bristol Bay, southeast winds at 10 knots with 2-foot seas. For the eastern Aleutians, south to southwest winds, 15 knots. Central Aleutians, south winds 20 to 25 knots. And then with that next front approaching here from the west, look for gale warnings here to develop by the time you get to Amchitka and Kiska. Storm warnings for Shimei and Attu for south winds 50 to 55 knots. And then that whole system pulls off to the northeast on Saturday, so we're left with southwest winds at about 30 knots over the western Aleutians. Gale force southerlies winds for Adak and Atka at 35 knots, and small craft advisories for the Fox Islands for south to southwest winds 25 to 30 knots. And for the southwest coast on Friday, west winds 10 to 15 knots, southeast 30-knot winds for the St. Matthew Island area and the Pribilofs. Let's see, they're looking at a southwest wind there for St. Paul and St. George at about 20 knots with 8-foot seas. Southwest 15 for St. Lawrence Island, about 20 knots in Norton Sound. And the outlook for Saturday, all these winds increase. Southeast 30 knots Norton Sound, south 30 knots St. Lawrence Island, and the Yukon Delta Coast. We've got some gale warnings in for the Kuskokwim Delta Coast, south at 35 there. And south winds 40 knots, 16-foot seas for the Pribilofs, south at 40 with 22-foot seas there for the St. Matthew Island area. And for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast for Friday, southwest winds at about 10 knots. Southwest 15 for the central Arctic coast. Brisk wind advisories here. Western Arctic coast, south winds 25 tomorrow. And then the Chukchi Sea, Wales to Cape Beaufort, southwest of 15. Those become gale force out of the southeast. Big increase in the winds here in the west from the Bering Strait right up to Cape Beaufort. Southeast 40 to 45 knots. Southeast winds increasing to 20 knots for the western Arctic coast, southwest 20 on the central coast. And then the east side there, looking at a west-southwest direction for the winds at 15 to 20 knots. And for tonight, this low coming on the southwest coast tracks up to the northeast, and this whole front weakening as it moves inland. So the winter weather advisories, Yukon, Kuskokwim Delta, and this evening, some slight snow push across the Kuskokwim Valley into the western Alaska range, maybe even into Cook Inlet, but snow chances will increase across all of south central Alaska late tonight. Into Bristol Bay, some snow, rain and snow for the Pribilofs. Dry for the Aleutians, unsettled for the Panhandle, that low right off the coast. Then a weak low develops on this front for Friday. Big storm coming in out west. We'll see pushes into the Russian Far East, but a very tight gradient between that low center there and the high over the eastern interior. Winter storm watches out Yukon Delta, St. Lawrence Island, Seward Peninsula, and the northwest coast. Mostly sunny, light.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.